Just to put this in perspective, we are told that this will trim $3 trillion off combined deficits, which is the very definition of our debt, all those deficits added up, by about $3 trillion over 10 years. Now, keep in mind here that we're adding about $20 trillion more in debt, roughly that, over the next decade. So instead of having a total debt that would be over $50 trillion, we presumably will have it down to a bargain basement area of 49, 48 trillion, depending on what statistics you want to use. So is that really saving money? Let's go to Dave Dodson, the Stanford Graduate School of Business professor. What do you think of that, Dave?
I think we're flat broke, and I am really sick and tired of the political cowardice that happens in Washington, D.C. Those numbers that you said are closer to the truth, but there's even more than that, Neil, is if this were measured as a company, these people would be in jail. And I mean that literally, because what's not counted is that $6 trillion of that of our deficit is borrowed from Social Security, and we have absolutely no plan on how we're going to pay that back. So whatever number you have, Neil, add $6 trillion to it. But here's the whopper, okay? The unfunded amount of Medicare and Social Security is, I kid you not, $50 trillion. So add $56 trillion to that number. We are flat broke. And the problem is nobody wants to talk about it because the solutions aren't $3 trillion of savings over 10 years. The solutions are we're going to require a fundamental change.
You know, and we don't see the change. But, you know, Washington is a weird place, Dave, because they will still call that a cut. The level and the rate of increase is still considered a cut. When we think of cuts, we actually think of reversing spending, not slowing its growth here. And this is to the point of out of control here. That's not something that companies would do, and boards would be dragged into Sing Sing if they did.
Absolutely. We have to look at the way to look at there's not a problem with the government having some debt and some leverage. In fact, if you're going to go build an aircraft carrier, it does make sense to use some debt to do that, just like a company would do. But you have to look at the ratio between GDP, which is our ability to pay off the debt, and the amount of debt. It used to run about 50%. After the Gulf War, rocked up to 100%, and now we're at 120%. And it's only going to climb. And that, of course, as I mentioned before, Neil, that doesn't count the numbers that I just referenced before. So we don't have a plan on how to pay this off, and we just keep kicking it down to the next congressman or the next senator.
And we confuse people. I, tried to use the analogy of saying, all right, in the next 10 years, I hope to lose 50 pounds. And let's say it doesn't happen that way and it's only 10 and all that. Say I'm down a net amount. And I guess what is confusing to a lot of people is if you're still getting fatter and now you claim that you didn't get as fat, you're still losing people here, and you're losing their money. And this is now to the point, especially in an environment of higher interest rates, it's going to kill us.
Yeah, and the tragedy is, Neil, is that it's not like we're going to have an option in 25 years of telling grandma that she doesn't get her Social Security, or telling someone who is relying on Medicare that they don't get their Medicare payment. So these are responsibilities that we have to people that we're going to have to make. So who's going to pay that? It's going to be the second generation, and for the first, or the generation below ours, Neil. And for the first time, that promise that our parents and grandparents and great grandparents gave us, we're not going to be able to afford that to our children because we've been spending like drunken sailors.
Do you think, Professor, the one thing that maybe the president offered as a way to sort of put Republicans on the spot, not to play politics with this, is here's how I'm going to shore up Medicare with this 5% surtax, some of these other measures that are extended shelf life. He's going to do it all with tax hikes. Now, that's putting the onus on Republicans. OK, what are you going to do about this entitlement?
Yeah, listen, I'm nonpartisan on this. Back in the day, the Republicans were fiscally more responsible. But remember, Mitch McConnell placed the phone call to Donald Trump and said nobody lost election by spending too much. So both parties have been spending like crazy. They've been using it as a political football to get reelected. But somebody needs to step back and say, we need a 25-year plan here, or we're messing up for the next generation below us.
You got it right. And you put it in just perspective that you are with your students. Professor, thank you.